I'm a kid from Pine Bluff. I grew up eating honeysuckle, fighting grasshoppers, and riding dirt bikes in a family that was surrounded by love and care. We didn't have a lot of cash, but we had a whole lot of love. And that taught me a few things. One, the significance and importance of family and community, but also the need to work really hard. Because there were some experiences that I had growing up that I didn't want to have again as I got older. But I grew up in Pine Bluff and spent a lot of time across the state, and I'm a 8th generation Arkansan, 7th generation Arkansan, and I'm proud of that. My daughters are 8th generation. So I am currently on a job interview, interviewing to become the next governor of Arkansas. My previous job was as the executive director of the Arkansas Regional Innovation Hub. But the thing that I love the most about life is that I have this amazing family. So my wife is Dr. Geraldine Jones. She's an ER doc, an Air Force veteran, and the state medical director for disaster preparedness. So she's on the front lines of helping us with COVID. And together, we are raising 3 amazing girls, Jordan, Janelle, and Jasmine. They're 12, 8, and 5. And let me tell you, they have a lot of energy.
And let's talk about the budget. What is your overall plan to balance the budget and keep Arkansas's economy healthy?
Yeah, so there are always these conversations around budget that tend to focus on one side of the ledger or the other. And I think it's important to focus on both sides of the ledger. So certainly we need to look for efficiencies. I love what Governor Hutchinson did in terms of reorganizing and restructuring the various agencies, and I think that was an important first step. And now we take the step of gaining increased efficiency across various agencies. But we also need to look on the revenue side of the house, and what are different ways that we're bringing in revenue. One example, I'm not saying that this will be the case, but one example is thinking about revenue from the sale of the taxes on marijuana. Once you legalize it and can bring in that revenue, it changes the revenue structure. So when you think about a Jones administration, we certainly will lean into looking at both the expense side of the house, where can we cut and save, but also the revenue side of the house. How can we get innovative and creative about new ways to bring in revenue?
One of your opponents on the Republican side says she is going to ban income taxes. Is that going to work for your plan?
I don't think it'll work. And the reason I say I don't think it'll work is because, when you talk about making major cuts to the economy, the question I ask is, what are you going to cut? What are we going to sacrifice? Do we cut police? Do we cut education, which is already struggling and our teachers are already underfunded? What other services do we cut that we need in our most rural areas? To just wholesale say that we're going to get rid of income from our income taxes is really short-sighted.
The current state of Arkansas and our budget, what program or agency would you look into cutting if you were governor right now?
Yeah. So my approach, and I've run a number of organizations. I've been an executive. I've had to make the tough choices of cutting individuals and cutting departments. And so it is not something to enter into lightly because whenever you cut, it has a ripple effect in other areas. So I will tell you my approach, and I think it's important to get under the hood. And as we get under the hood, there are certainly areas when you think about the reorganization that happened, we have not yet reached a level of efficiency across the board. And so what I would ask, I can tell you what questions I would ask. I would ask the question of, are we right-sized? Do we have the right workforce in place in order to effectively and efficiently accomplish the goal? Now, 18 months from now, that could look very different than what it looks like right now. And so for me, it's about the process and the approach. And so my process will be to totally look under the hood with each agency. And there are times when you need a machete and there are times when you need a scalpel. And I think whatever tool is necessary to make sure that we're positioned to give Arkansas the best is the tool that I'll use.
Do you have any specific programs or agencies in mind right now?
Not right now. And again, the reason I say not right now is because I think it'd be short-sighted to without having sat down and had the conversations. I can't hear out of my right ear. And because I can't hear out of my right ear, I've had to lean into listening. But it's taught me that you actually learn a lot when you take the time to listen. So for me to say today, right now, that I would cut these 3 or 4 programs, I think would be short-sighted without having sat with each agency, sat with each program, and looked comprehensively at here's what's on the table, and here's where we want to go, and here's what we need in order to get us where we want to go. That's the approach that I would take, and anything else I think would be short-sighted.
What about minimum wage? Do you think we have a fair minimum wage in Arkansas?
I think there are far too many families that are working 2 or 3 jobs, and they literally work all week, and at the end of the week they don't have enough to pay the bills. They don't have enough to both pay their bills or where they live, but then also think about prescription drugs and put food on the table. So we certainly need some upward trajectory on our lower income. And you see examples in the private sector of folks that are stepping up to do it. So Sam's increased their minimum wage to $15 an hour for their lowest paid workers. And I think a combination of the efforts from the government sector plus the private sector working in concert together are ways that we can lift every boat.